Yo YouTube, today we have a very special guest who's gonna share a ton of amazing tips and tricks that will certainly help you a lot. My man, wanna introduce yourself?
Yo, what's up guys? I'm Aura2020 and I am a Season 1 and 2 Grandmaster, and I also played the game competitively and scrimmaged for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a nice intro. I approve.
Alright, I was worried that wasn't gonna be good.
Let's start with the basics. Say you have the highest rank in the room, so you get the first pick. What would you get?
What I would want is either Eevee or like an Andro, and then I would want a Luminary Genos, and I'd just try to run around the map killing everything. Trying to get picks really early in rounds, maybe like buying Master Riding 3 and trading 2 for 1. Just trying to get as much value as I can, make the game as easy as possible for my teammates.
Wait, you mentioned Master Riding?
This patch, Master Riding's like way better because it's cheaper. Your deaths matter way less, right? So like if you're alone in a ranked game and you have 4 randoms and you have to carry, then when you're dead, your team's gonna lose. So Master Riding kind of minimizes that time when you're dead. It minimizes that your team has to like fight without you. So I think it helps a lot.
Makes sense. So here's a question I'm pretty sure a lot of people ask. Is it possible to get to Masters by solo queuing?
You can definitely get in solo queuing, it's just like a way harder, and it limits the things that you can really do. When you pick a role, you have to try to work with your team, and if you don't really know anybody else on your team, it can be hard to work with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what's the most important thing in ranked?
Working with your teammates is one of the best things you can do in ranked. It's hard a lot, and that's why I encourage you to try to get a party or a duo every time you play ranked. Working with your team is probably one of the biggest things you can do to help towards winning.
Makes sense. Talking about teamwork, would you suggest using voice with randoms? I know they can be toxic.
Right off the edge.
Hey, shut the fuck up.
I know not everyone uses that, so what's your take on this?
With voice, you get your team's attention instantly. With VGGS, they'll probably finish what they're doing at that moment, and then they'll try to help you. And so oftentimes it's just not enough. If you don't give information to your team, you're not doing as much as you could be.
So you suggest using voice chat in ranked?
If other people are using it, I think you definitely use it too.
That makes sense. Okay, so we join a game and we have to ban someone. Who would you suggest banning?
So there's first pick bans and second pick bans. First pick, you can try to ban a Torvald or a Genos or just something that you really don't want in the game. Whereas the second pick player has to be more reactive because they don't want to give you that one OP champ because you're first pick.
Alright, makes sense. And which class would you say to lock first?
In terms of locking classes first, classes don't really matter. It just depends on what champions are good at the moment in time. But you want to try to get off tank, main tank, blaster, the direct damage, and then the support. So you want to have every role. But in terms of picking it first, you don't want to really care as much. One thing that you kind of want to do is you don't want to pick both of your DPS really early. I know in ranked it's hard because people just lock DPS when they're first, but you want to try to make sure that you can flex 1 damage based on what their team comp is, so you get something good into it. Drogos in particular, if they don't have a hit scan, you can just fly around forever with worm jets and no one will hit you. But roles don't really matter that you're going to lock first.
Okay, so I follow your advice and play in a duo. Which classes should we get?
If you do have a friend, the roles you want to play is tank and damage. One of you plays tank, one of you plays damage, one of you plays support, and one of you plays damage. If you're a damage and they're a support, you can try to protect your support and go back for them if they're getting dove or something's on them, and they can keep you alive and they can make sure that you don't die because you were sitting in a corner for 10 seconds and nobody healed you. So you kind of help each other a lot, and that'll make the game go a lot more smoothly. Or a tank and a damage. A tank can make them have to back up, make them not able to fight you. A lot of times on the map, you just can't get to the places you want to play from that give you a good way to shoot the enemy team. But a tank can open up that space for you. That's the main reason off tanks exist, just to create space for their DPS so the DPS can do what they want to.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think everyone needs to hear this, because the off tank is the least understood role in ranked, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. The reason why you see sometimes in random games pro players just won't do well, it looks like they're feeding, is because they just don't have any space to play with. And so off tanks die a lot in pro plays. They don't get the same recognition that DPS do, but you don't really realize that it's a lot of times it's the tanks that make the space for them.
I see a lot of people going for the tank and support duo, and you would not suggest doing that.
Yeah, the main job of the main tank is win point for their team. And then off tank is supposed to make space for DPS. So you can see that both those roles really aren't supposed to be killing the whole enemy team. So that's why if you don't have a good DPS player, both DPS are just bad, you just don't have a way to win the game because all you can really do is contest point. But contesting point won't win you the game. Eventually something on the other team has to die.
So if I want to get a good rank, it's important for me to learn how to be a good DPS. Does it have to be a damager, or can it be a flanker too?
A lot of people are you need a flank. It's not if you have 2 damages, you're not able to flank or anything. Flank and damage are kind of considered the same role. They're slightly different, but a lot of times you just have a character that plays on their own, which is direct damage, because most of the time it's a hit scan. Your Leons, Cassies, Snipers is primarily those four, but they play other things. And then you have your Flex DPS. This is the player that kind of plays like everything else. So like you have Bomb King, EVs, Maeve, Buck if you want it, Koga, you have Andrew. There's like a lot of things that Flex DPS plays. There's also supports, obviously, and then there's main tanks and off tanks. Main tanks and off tanks, you kind of want one of each, but there are times where you can make 2 off tanks work. Or you can play a main tank like as an off tank, mostly Berg.
So it happens, right? In ranked, sometimes you get 2 off tanks for one reason or another. How would you play around that?
If you have 2 off tanks on your team, you can't send one of them point because they're not good at it. So you have to like try to dive their backline, be really aggressive, and just like ignore point and kill their team and then go to point. That's just like a general layout.
That makes sense. So here's a tricky one. Can you get to a good rank if you're a one-trick?
People get to diamond being one-tricks, but you can pretty easily just like play that one champion all the time. One-tricking a champ is like a pretty easy way to get. Like generally what you do is if you're first pick in high elo, it's like a lot of people like even though they're not one-tricks, they're just like the best pick in ranked and they end up playing that anyways. You just get the same champion every game.
And who was your one-trick champion?
At the moment, I play like literally everything. Like I just kind of do whatever. But when I went to GM the first time, I played a lot of Andrew.
That's interesting. So now, could we talk about the best picks for some specific maps?
Snipers are a big part of the meta, and sniper maps are a big part of the meta. Frog Isle, a lot of times you go with sniper because you can like jump over the walls and shoot. They have like no time to kill you, but you can just take shots and it's really dangerous. You would probably want just like a standard support. Point, Barrack's probably like the best point tank right now. Offlane, probably you'd want a con because Frog Isle is a map where you can con ult somebody off the map, and it's also feasible that like you get a con in this meta because people don't really ban him as much. Stormbullets con is actually still good. I know a lot of good tank players have been doing is they run the ammo card for con on level 3. Your ult is still really good on con. And that's like one of the things you can also use to like solo carry rank games because if you ult someone off the map, you're instantly killing one of them. It's a 4v5. So if you have like a teammate who's just really bad and doing nothing, now it's like a 4v4.
Damn, you really need to think about those things in ranked, right?
That's the thought process.
What about the other champions?
There are a lot of things you can run on Frog Isle. EV is pretty free this meta. Maeve is also considered good. And then as support, Genos would be really good with that comp. It's only kind of hard for the con. Barrack has a lot of self-heal. Genos is enough to solo sustain. And Eevee and Kinessa generally don't take a lot of damage, and Eevee self-heals like 500 every time she blinks. So yeah, that would be a pretty good comp for Frog Isle.
Gotcha. And what damages would you prioritize in Frog Isle?
Damages, Kinessa. You can also go like Leon and Cassie, but Frog Isle is like a map where you don't have stuff playing in the middle of it. There's like that bull, and there's like the high ground on both sides. So what happens is a lot of DPS is like to be kid scans. Because you want to stay on the high ground, so you won't really have projectiles playing far away. That's why snipers are so good on that map, because there's like a lot of sight lines and you have like really safe high ground.
You mentioned snipers a lot. Could you tell me what you consider a sniper map?
The sniper maps are pretty much Bazaar, Fish Market, Timber Mill, and Frog Isle. Those are the main maps where like you want to draft around snipers and try to pick them really early. There's also Splitstone Quarry, which is not really a sniper map, but it's pretty good for like a last pick kind of thing, where snipers are viable. So like those maps, you can either just like ban the sniper, just try to make sure that you have a flank that can fly up to their, because a lot of those maps, like the reason it's good because high ground or good lines of sight, so make sure you have something that can flank the sniper or something that can pressure them.
Do you think this will apply to lower ranks too?
I guess snipers aren't so good of a deal in lower ranks because you can probably find a way to get into their backline.
Yeah, what about non-sniper maps?
So a lot of the non-sniper maps are also like Bomb King maps. Bright Marsh, you would pick Bomb King to play with your tank as your flex DPS. And you'd probably have a direct damage that plays mid or like in that window to point. And it can be, you'd probably just take a Cassie. Bomb King's really good. Luminary Bomb King is really scary. On Bright Marsh, there's like rooms. Like you literally just like throw your Grumpy on point. There's like no walls to hide behind, so they either just take it or like walk out. Or use like a shield to block it, which is value because if you're forcing them to use shield, then they won't have it anymore. And then you want a tank that can push with the Bomb King, so you're off tank.
I see. Also, I see a lot of people struggling to push in stone keep.
And so during the point fight, Church is low ground and Keep is high ground. And you can try to draft to take one of them. You want to have a comp that can play on one of the sides. So a lot of things with strong area of effect presences like Bomb King, not really so much Drogo's because he can't fly, but Bomb Kings, Willows, Gazin, stuff with good area of effect damage, and even area of effect healing like Grover would probably want to play and Keep. Whereas Church gets smaller and you can play like a lot more flank stuff because you just like go through it. Basically, area of effect you go Keep and try to keep that area controlled, and if you don't, then you just play low ground and you play for point. You start drafting for Church if they get certain picks where you just like can't win it anymore, and you're like, okay, you can't. There are also some comps that once you have ultimate abilities, you can take keep. Like, so first round you don't have ults, so you kind of have to play first round differently than like for the rest of the game, because you should try to save ults for point fights. So first round you might not be able to take keep, but if you have like a Genos, you can be like, hey, let's just like go in there and try it. At the very least, they have to run from his thing, so they won't have movement ability, so he can kill something.
I guess if you force a damager into using their movement ability, that's value.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Damages have to be super aware of abilities that keep them alive and their movement abilities a lot. Supports do too, but it's like supports are generally playing really safe, so like damages, you have to try not to waste your movement abilities. With Willow, you kind of don't want to flutter in unless you're gonna get a kill and you have the cooldown card, so like you can maybe get it back soon enough and get out. You want to try to save your movement ability. You want to try to make sure that you're keeping it for later on in the game in case you get dove or...
Talking about damages, what do you think about these specific champions?
Leon.
She's like consistent. It's like a lot of consistent damage. So it's just like worth it because like even if the opponents are playing in a way that makes it harder for you, it's a really quick shooting hit scan weapon that you can burst people down with too. You're always doing something as Leon. Leons and Victors are the kinds of champions that even if you're losing or winning, you're always gonna have pretty good stats.
And what about Alacrity Leon?
Alacrity Leons.
What about Bumpkin?
Like, the Bomb King likes to play aggressively more because you have Poppy Bombs, you can just fly into them and do a ton of damage up close. You'd probably want like a more aggressive tank, but you can play with something passive too, like a Khan.
And Victor?
Victor is really good because his burst mode talent lets you do decent damage over range.
What about Vivian?
Vivian, I think, is fine. The big thing about Vivian is if you get Genoscript, you're probably dead. You have a lot of fall off, but Vivian can burn point really well. And if you get flanked, then you can just pop shield. It's a lot harder for them to get damage on you.
What about Void Grip Genos?
This is kind of a me thing. Obviously, Luminary is really good, but I think like Cripple Grip Genos is pretty okay this patch. Because they nerfed Resilience, like, you have to spend the same amount of credits and you get way less value.
And what about Shaolin?
Shaolin's really good this patch, and a lot of people don't ban him.
That's interesting. Also, I see a lot of Zins going for Guillotine, especially on lower ranks. Is there a way to counter it?
Champions with damage reduction and a lot of healing in a short period of time can maybe save people from his ult. So like an example is Rom, like as Guillotine's in, even with Guillotine you don't want to ult in Rom, his damage reduction he gets from his right click, and if you have like a DR IO, you can try to pocket the person gets an ulted. If you have like Grover ult or Ying ult or like Torvald bubble, it's another way you can kind of deal with Sin, just like trying to keep the person he ults alive.
Wait, but what about Cauterize? Doesn't his ult apply Cauterize?
Cauterize only applies on things that qualify as weapon shots. Like Drogo's salvo is an ability where like the shots are weapon shots, and Shaolin Q, the ult planted at the very least, was considered a weapon shot that applied Cauterize.
That's a very interesting thing to know. By the way, here's a tricky one. I know you're an Eevee main, so I would like to have your insight on how to counter her.
Yeah, for sure. So if the enemy team can just walk at you for free, it's really hard because like with Wormhole, one of the biggest things you can do to counterplay an Eevee is look at her blink spot. So if the enemy team's just allowed to walk into you and your team, then your blink spot becomes unsafe a lot and you'll just die and there's not much you can really do about it.
Oh, that makes sense. By the way, is Maeve viable against snipers?
So Maeve, moving through the air, it's pretty easy to shoot her because her jump height's pretty regular, but if you sneak up behind them, she's gonna burst you, so it's good. And also, almost all the champions in the game like can get rid of Maeve's ult. Damba can slither, Eevee can ice block, Koga can use dash, Minara can pop DR. Like every character in the game almost has like a way to deal with Maeve ult. Strix and Kinessa both don't, so Maeve can be really good into them.
That must be very helpful for the Maeve mains there. Okay, last question. Inara is my personal favorite tank. What do you think an Inara should focus on?
The key to Inara is rotating cooldowns, like making sure like you pop DR first, and then after your DR ends, you put up walls so they can't shoot you through the wall, and then DR you get your cooldown back, so you pop it again and you're staying on point, and then maybe like you use Warder's Field and you hide behind a wall, and you can also like wall off Conults. If someone Conults someone on Splitstone Quarry and they're gonna throw him into this fidget spinner, Inara can just wall it before he throws. He either has to hold on to him, and like when the Khan's holding a person, you can just shoot the Khan easily, or he throws them at the wall and basically wastes ult and only does 700 damage.
Alright.
Whenever I play Inara, I just run around and have fun and flank people. It's not the right way you do it, but like it's pretty fun.
Gosh. Okay, ladies and gents, that was Aura2020 with me. Again, the clips used in this video were taken all from his stream. He streams a few times a week, so make sure to check him out and see those amazing plays in real time. A huge thanks to my patrons Raidguard153, Abdallah Mamas, and everyone else on Patreon for their amazing support of this channel. Thanks for sticking around, guys, and I'll see you next time.